Welcome everyone to another Indie Dev Showcase here on the channel. Every Wednesday night we dedicate the streams to nothing but indie games, and these videos are the recaps of them. If you'd like to submit a game for a future video and stream, please get in touch. All games shown are either press key submissions or demo spotlights. And with that said, we're going to be beginning with Dysmantle. This is the early access kind of open world exploration action game from 10 Tons, the makers of Judge and a slew of arena based shooters. So with that in mind, this was played while it was in early access, and what you see may not represent the current version of it. So the concept here is that it is the zombie apocalypse. You are one of the last remaining humans, and you're going to have to survive. And by survive, that is running around, beating things up, and crafting as many things as you can get your hands on. The key progression mechanic of the game is going to be finding materials and items that you need in order to level up, as well as craft all your necessary upgrades. You can see what I have kind of pinged or pinned on the right hand side there. As you get experience, you'll be able to level up, which will let you choose different perks. And I believe the perks may be randomly chosen when you start, although I'm not 100% sure on that one. But when you do choose your perks and you level up, you'll be able to unlock new things based on a very massive perk or unlock tree, as you can see right here. The more things you unlock, the more functionality you get, which will let you get further, which will let you get more gear, rinse and repeat. And besides that, the story progression will take you all over this island, looking for various ways of getting off it, and of course discovering why are zombies taking over. Now, as you can see from the footage that I've shown so far, Dysmantle is 100% real time. This is more of an action game with RPG elements as opposed to being heavily RPG based. And there have been some comments on the store pages and some of the tags suggesting that this game may be a survival style game, and it is most definitely not a survival game. Even though you are cooking food and having to scavenge for resources, this is more like open world ARPG rather than something like 7 Days to Die, The Forest, Don't Starve, etc., etc. From what I played of this version of Dysmantle, there's no real building or, base building or constructing a home base like that. Instead, you'll set up camps, fast travel, and the progression curve is definitely more action-based. So it's important to know what to expect when you're picking this game up. If you're hoping for, a survival long-form style game, this is not going to work for you. If you're looking for more of a open world action kind of title, I did enjoy Dysmantle, although it did start to feel a little bit repetitive. Because your progression is really tied to the upgrades that you get, you're kind of at the mercy of finding old materials in the world itself. And as with games of this kind, as you get started, you'll be very weak, it'll be very hard for you to fight some of these enemies off. And I envision at some point things will kind of break loose, and you'll become, the one-man walking undead army, or undead killer, that we often see from open world style games. So, I enjoyed this one, but again, keep in mind, I am not by any means a fan of survival style games. And if you are one, you might want to keep away from this. But if you're looking for a game where you get to run around, grow in power, and bash zombies in with whatever implements you want, then I would say give this one a check. For our next game, we have Arietta of Spirits. This is a demo build that we played during the summer festival. And this is kind of a Zelda-ish kind of game. More like lighthearted, not so much on the high-stakes difficulty of some of the games we've seen from the genre. But our story involves the girl Arietta here, who, visiting her grandmother's cabin after she passed away with her family, discovers a long-buried secret that she can talk to spirits. and that something is causing a lot of trouble among the land of the non-living. And it's up to her and her spirit guide to figure out what is going on and make life better for those who have passed on. If you're hoping for a dark and gritty story and mature visuals, this is not going to be the game for you. From what we played of the demo, this is going to be your standard kind of like top-down action-adventure gameplay. You can dodge roll, fight enemies, and look around for various items and things help you solve puzzles. The main hook of the game will be the story and figuring out what is happening with our friend here, the spirits, and defeating whatever big bad that is trying to stop everyone from passing on. And I did find the story to be on the charming side. If you're looking for more of a light-hearted, but still like going to be emotionally gut-punch game, then give this one a check. But if you are looking for more hardcore or advanced versions of this kind of gameplay, I don't think this game is going to hit that mark. For our next game, we have Pyramid Plunge. This is another demo that we checked out, and this is a game that's going for kind of a platformer roguelite with more of a comedic or cartoony look to it. If you're hoping for spelunky levels of super difficult death traps, you're not going to find it here. But our story involves this married couple who one day while touring pyramids decides to get off the tour and start looking for treasure. And in the process, they get trapped inside a pyramid and have to team up to get out of it. Now, the big thing I want everyone to know is that the footage that you're seeing, this is playing the game single player, where you can only control one character at a time. But the game will feature full-on co-op, with one player controlling the husband, one player controlling the wife. So, movement and controls are your standard platforms. You can move, jump, wall jump, pick up items, and make use of things to get through the level. You can pick up gems and treasure, which you can use to trade in at stores. Now, if either teammate runs out of health, you lose the run. And that is important to keep track of, especially if you're playing this co-op, as we have certainly seen in many of the games we've played how one person can get into a lot of trouble. My main concern with the game is just how much variance there's going to be on a run-by-run basis, and will the gameplay be interesting enough to basically be doing this with one person. Now, if we do get a key for this one or check out more on stream, I would like to do this co-op just to see how much of a different feel there is to it. But this game seemed like it to be a very delightful platformer. Again, if you're looking for that spelunky level of difficulty, you're not going to find that here. But this could be a really great game for some friends to run through and hopefully not throw one of them into a boulder or something like that. So with that said, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we have 3 more games to look at for this week's Spotlight. And as always, if you're interested in my books on design, then check out my latest offerings. For entry-level students, we have 20 essential games to study, and then the Game Design Deep Dive series that takes an extensive look at different genres, with horror coming by the end of 2021. For our next game, this is Slasher's Keep. And this is one that I picked up sometime in 2020. We played through it a little bit on stream. This is a first-person hack-and-slash style game, where we are trapped in a dungeon, and our only way out is to fight our way through mobs and mobs and mobs and mobs of all kinds of monsters. Now, the key element of this one is that the world itself is procedurally generated, but you also have kind of somewhat locational based damage. As in, hit the enemy with your mace in the face, you'll do more damage, but you won't be able to knock off limbs or things like that. Besides that, you have your sack of loot that you are carrying in your other hand, which you can use to knock enemies into pits, traps, and whatever you can find. Now, the game does feature some light emergent behavior along those lines, of being able to use traps and the environment to your advantage. You'll also be able to upgrade your character, and there is some element of persistence with getting new upgrades and being able to unlock more as you play through the game. Whenever you start back in your dungeon, you'll be given some random gear, and as you can see, you'll keep some of the stats or skills that you've permanently unlocked. And of course, you start with no clothes when you begin your game here. And from what we played this one on stream, my main concerns, what kind of kept me from playing this more, is that it didn't feel like there was a ton of variance in how each run plays out. Gear is randomly generated. When you start finding the higher rarities, I'll have unique properties and things along those lines. But for the most part, your general route through this game did not really feel to change on a run-by-run basis. Now, I did like kind of the use of the environment, and this is one of the few games of this kind that really lets the environment be as much of a character in the world as the various enemies and your weapons. But even with that said, it didn't feel like the runs were feeling different on each playthrough. Not in the same way as when we played something like Gunfire Reborn, that one different perk or one different weapon could radically change the entire run. And the general gameplay, it felt okay, but again, it didn't really have as much of that oomph or that impact in terms of your weapons as I would have liked as well. And the difficulty of the combat is one of those games where it's easy until it's not. You're probably going to steamroll through most of the enemies you're going to run into, or just knock them off the edge of a pit, or things like that. But when you get to boss fights, suddenly the difficulty spikes. The boss does a lot of damage, you're doing very little against them, and it feels very much like one of those games where you're forced to grind the persistence to really stand a chance to be able to win. You need those stat points, you need more of your kind of your core abilities leveled up, or you're simply just not going to be able to survive these battles. And I think a lot of people kind of got fed up at that first boss fight and quit the game. This is one of those titles where I feel like you are either going to stop playing in like the first hour to 90 minutes, or the game's going to hook you and you're going to go as far as you can in it. If you're looking for a kind of melee-focused dungeon crawler like this, with more of the roguelike elements, I would say check this one out. But if you are easily frustrated or you're not a fan of kind of the forced grind for progress, then Slasher's Keep I don't think is going to work for you. Up now we have Gunnhildr, and this was a game we played on early access sometime in 2020. And what this is essentially trying to make a high-speed FPS roguelite. So this is kind of super futuristic, but still dealing with Norse mythology and such. You are a Valkyrie trying to fight your way out of a mysterious prison and figure out what is going on. Aiding you is going to be your gun and the ability to rip cores out of all the various robots and creatures that you find. So the game itself is very much set up similar to Borderlands, in that you get different guns. The guns will have different stats and properties to them, and of course these guns can drop at any time, and I believe are procedural. Again, you want better guns, which will then let you fight more and hopefully survive. Now, all the while you're going to be assaulted room by room from all manner of enemies. Now, instead of having dedicated ammo, how it works is that every gun has a heat index. As you fire it, the heat raises up, and you'll need to either switch weapons, jump, or air dash in order to remove that heat in order to then be able to fire it again. So it definitely has that initial hook of the high speed of something like Doom meets the procedural nature of a roguelike, or again, roguelite. When you die, the crystals that you see in the bottom are your persistent currency, which unlocks new abilities, new passives, new functionality, and all that other good stuff. While all this sounds great, my main issue that I had with Gunnhildr is that it kind of got to the point that the core gameplay just was not as interesting or as engaging as it was in Doom and some of the other ones that we played. You are assaulted by a lot of enemies, and as you can see on the minimap up there, like, it is like 15 to 1 at the moment. You need to get in to pull out enemy cores in order for it to count and to regain some stats. But this is one of those games where your weapons are just, in the beginning, woefully behind in terms of fighting these enemies. And when something bigger and nastier comes and gets you, there's not much you're going to be able to do about it. And I found that the persistence side, using these gems and crystals, to fall into that same category of In Celebration of Violence and some of the other lesser roguelites, where you need the persistence to be able to stand a chance. And you get the wrong ones in the wrong order, you're going to be in trouble in terms of making meaningful progress in the game. Now, please keep in mind that the footage you're seeing is pretty much taken from like week 1 of it being on early access and may not represent the current version of it. For our final game of the spotlight, we turn to Demon Turf. This is one that I am really excited about as a 3D platformer fan. This is from the developer of Slimezen, which was a very challenging 2D platformer, very kind of physics-based. And with Demon Turf, this is their attempt at making a 3D one. And what I really like about this game is that this is the closest I've seen an indie developer come at trying to compete with Nintendo in terms of 3D movement tech. And what I mean by that is that unlike a lot of the 3D platformers we've played that only have like 1 or 2 kinds of jumps, Demon Turf goes for multiple kinds. You have different kinds of attacks, your character behaves with multiple double and triple jumps, wall jumps, and it feels very much like a 3D Mario game, specifically in how you can combine all this tech to do all kinds of crazy maneuvers. Now, the game is set up that you actually create your own checkpoints that you can place down and warp to and from in each one of the game's levels. But for people who want to see everything and go for the time trial challenges, it is going to be more about just how quickly you can get around, and you really don't have time to spend going for checkpoints. Now, from what we played of this, there are going to be additional tech and gadgets that you can use, which in turn can be chained together into your own abilities. And this is definitely like it's going to be one of the more advanced 3D platformers. Now, from what we played of the demo, it only included a few levels and I think 1 or 2 hubs, so we didn't really get to see what, I guess, quote-unquote expert level play of this game is like, but I'm sure there are a lot of 3D platformer fans who have already started to try and break this game in terms of how all the tech works. And this is one of those titles I am very much interested in seeing how well it goes and what people think of it. And I believe the demo for this one is still available now, and there's also bonus challenges that you could download. I believe there's going to be like a get yourself in the game challenge for the top players of it. But with that said, we're going to wrap up this week's spotlight here. As always, I'd like to thank the developers who submitted games. You'll find links to everything in the description down below. If you'd like to submit a title for a future stream and video, please get in touch and come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where some of the art and science of games. Until next time, take care.